After I quit booking in 2008, Mountain State, I hung around and worked for maybe about another 6 months. And then a promoter that I knew in Huntington, West Virginia, was going to be running every Friday night. So I was going to take a break from Mountain State Wrestling and go and wrestle there in Huntington every Friday night and fill the rest of the Saturdays up that would have been Mountain State shows with, whatever else I could find. And I did that for about a year, maybe a year and a half, and then I went back to Mountain State. This was like late 2010, early 2011 maybe. And I went back to Mountain State. And Spider was doing some stuff with me back then too. And we went back to work for Leonard. And Tom Lilly and Scotty McKeever were running shows also. And they were running in the same territory that Leonard was running Mountain State Wrestling in. And I heard that they were running, and I got a hold of Scotty, and he asked me to come and work for them. And I told him no. I'd just come back to Mountain State. I had Spider with me, all this other kind of crap. And, I was happy with what I was doing. Me and Scotty were really tight. Me and Tom Lilly are really tight too. And they both kept after me. And a lot of times too, they were running shows and they were only having like 8 to 10 wrestlers on their show anyway. So, they wanted me to come and wrestle for them, but they also kind of needed wrestlers too, because they were short a lot of times on shows. So I kept telling them no, that it's bad business decision for me to leave Mountain State Wrestling and come and wrestle for them, because I knew I couldn't do both. So back in the 1950s, back before NFL players were millionaires, a lot of the bigger guys, offensive, defensive linemen, who didn't get paid that much, even though they were pro football players, they would moonlight in the off season as professional wrestlers. And they did it to begin with under like their real names and everything like that, and their teams would find out about it and they would bust their ass. And in a lot of them, they got put in their contracts, you can't be a professional wrestler. So what a lot of NFL players did in the off season, they kept moonlighting as wrestlers, but they would put a mask on. And they would be the masked Marvel or the Avenger or the Destroyer or what the fuck ever, Mr. X. And they'd wrestle. And they'd make extra money wrestling. And their team was none the wiser. So, knowing this, I decided to try it. And I was still wrestling for Leonard. I wasn't his booker, but I'd come back and I was wrestling for him, and he was still on TV, and I was on his TV, and I went to Tom Lilly and Scotty and I said, fellas, I'll come to wrestle for you, but I can't come to wrestle for you as Johnny Blast or I'll get fired. So, after trying on about 25 different masks, until I found one that I could see out of and one that I could breathe out of, I deemed myself Mr. Omega. And I started wrestling for Mountain State Wrestling's competition under their nose. And I did it for almost a year. And one night, and I don't know why, but one night, I wrestled for them as Johnny Blast. And this was a Friday night show in Ronceverte. So I'm wrestling the next night for Leonard in Rand. So I wrestled the Friday night show in Ronceverte for Tom and Scotty as Johnny Blast, the one and only time. And the next day, when I pulled into the parking lot at Rand, Leonard was in the parking lot waiting for me. And I tried to sidestep him, and he was like, I need to talk to you. And I was like, I knew he knew already. Somebody took pictures at the show the night before, put them on Facebook or whatever, and Leonard saw them. And he knew that I had been wrestling for those people. So anyway, I avoid Leonard as much as I can, and he finally tracks me down. And he said, where were you last night? And I said, well, Leonard, I said, I went to the show in Ronceverte. You know, I know Scotty, known him for a long time, known Tom for a long time. I went to the show in Ronceverte just to say hi to everybody, you know, and I said, you know, good wrestlers always got his gear with him. I said, and I got there last night, and they just happened to be one man short. I said, just for that one time, Leonard. I said, okay. I said, I thought about the ramifications. I said, but, I thought I was helping out an old friend. And I wrestled for him. I said, yes, I confess, I wrestled for him. So, he said, well, I think he took me off TV for I don't know, a couple weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. He took me off TV. I think me and Spider were the tag team champions at the time, and we lost the belts that night. And he made me swear to him. He made me swear to him that I would never wrestle for them again. And I love you, Leonard. But I looked at Leonard and I said, Leonard, Johnny Blast will never work for Tom Lilly and Scotty McKeever ever again. And 2 weeks later, I put the mask back on and I went back and I wrestled as Mr. Omega for Tom Lilly and Scotty McKeever for another 2 years. The first time, the first show I went to, right? The first show I get booked as Mr. Omega. I'm deathly scared that somebody in the crowd is going to notice something about, they're going to be sitting there watching and they're going to go, is that Johnny? That's what I'm afraid of. So I changed everything. I didn't do any fucking move that Johnny Blast did. I tried not to do any sort of mannerism that I did or any kind of thing like that. I kept my hair all shoved up inside the mask, and I'd bring the mask down to where it looked like I had short hair, where you didn't even get a hint that I had long hair at all. But the first show that I went to that I got booked as Mr. Omega, I went to it and I was deathly afraid that either somebody in the crowd was going to notice or that somebody in the locker room was going to stooge me off. And I stopped at a convenience store a couple of miles away from where the building was, and I put the mask on.
Oh, yeah?
And I drove to the building, and I parked around back, and I got out of the car, and I found the side entrance. I snaked my way through the back part of this building. Not very well lit. I'm wearing the mask. I don't have much practice wearing the mask. Wearing a mask is really hard. So I walk into the locker room, and I'm so afraid that by the end of the show that Leonard's going to know about it. And I walk in the locker room, and I walk in and shut the door behind me, and I lift my hood up, and I look at like each individual person, right? And it's like a dozen wrestlers, and I'm just clicking them off as I go, and I look at the first guy, and I'm like, oh, he hates Leonard. Then the next guy hates Leonard. Oh man, really hates Leonard. Hates Leonard with a passion. Hates Leonard with a fiery passion. I'm like, and by the time I make it back around, like all the way back around to me, I'm just like, I don't think anybody's going to tell on me here. And in fact, none of them told on me. And a lot of them thought it was funny as shit because I was putting one over on Leonard, and I was coming and working for them, and I was still working for Leonard, and nobody knew. I'm riding home one night from Hinton, and this was, oh dear Lord, this was a good couple of years after Tom and Scotty had quit running shows, and I'd packed away Mr. Omega. And I was riding home with Pitbull Bob Brown. And we started talking about when Tom and Scotty ran those shows. And just out of the blue, and I hadn't told Bob anything about anything. There's a lot of people I never told about it. But we, out of the blue, we're riding down the road, coming back to him. Out of the blue, Bob goes, "Hey, Johnny, what do you think about this?" He said, "Do you think somebody could wrestle for one promotion and then wrestle for the opposing promotion if they wore a mask or something like that?" And I don't know how I kept from dying laughing, but I just went, "Bob, I think somebody already has." And then I told him the whole Mr. Omega story. He had no clue. Because I don't think he was wrestling during those years. So he wasn't around whatsoever. But we were talking about, because there's always the phenomenon in wrestling of you can wrestle for this guy, but you can't wrestle for this other guy. I see it to a point. If I was a business person, I would definitely want to have some talent that nobody else had, so I could feature them and I could say, "Hey, you know, this is the only place you're going to see so and so." But as a wrestler, good Lord, let 3 or 4 fucking more people start fucking running wrestling shows. They're going to all use the same core group of people if you're worth a shit. So that's going to mean, if you're a wrestler, so it's going to mean more for you. So why the fuck not? I have to piss.
I'll pause it.
That's okay.
You don't gotta.